My team sucks. I'm always so unlucky when it comes to solo queue. I would be challenger if only my team wasn't holding me back. Does this sound familiar? It does for all of our coaches back at ProGuides. Welcome back, gamers. We're here again with another video, and today we'll be discussing what mindset you should be adopting when you're diving into solo queue. We're almost 100% sure that you guys are or were guilty of this mindset of endlessly blaming everything else but your own gameplay. Our analysts and coaches all agree on the fact that this is the most toxic mindset to have, as it prohibits your own growth as a player. Even if you are 10-0 and you still lose, there are things that you could have done differently to have a better chance at winning. Of course, some games are unwinnable or extremely hard to win. But there's a huge reason why all pro players and challenger players are able to maintain high win rates and hit the top of the leaderboard every single season. One thing we're going to repeat over and over is that if your goal is to climb the ladder, then your goal is to simply improve and nothing else. We'll go over that in detail, but with that said, we've listed a couple of common excuses that come up more often than it should. But before we start, make sure to check out ProGuides.com to improve all aspects of your gameplay. We have a whole library of courses going over the best strategies to win your games, along with live classes given by pros and multi-seasonal challenger players that you can tune into. We also have on-demand coaches with hundreds of hours of coaching experience that are ready to coach 24/7. And today, our question of the day is, what frustrates you most when playing solo queue or playing League of Legends in general? Okay, let me start off by saying that you will always get players on your team that will hard int. But keep in mind that that is just how any competitive video game is. The only difference for League of Legends is that it's a 5v5 game and everyone has a role in winning and losing. With that in mind, it is inevitable that there will be players that are simply better than others and players that are simply worse than others. When you get into a solo queue game, you're matched with people similar to your rank and ultimately people similar to your skill. So if you were to play 1,000 games, your team will be better than their team 50% of the time, with you being the one factor that swings the game in your favor or not. That is why when challenger players smurf, they can maintain up to a 90% win rate until high elo, because they're able to significantly impact the game so that it isn't a 50-50 coin flip, but it's more of a 90-10 in their favor. The point that I wanted to get across from this is that yes, your team will feed from time to time. Your team will carry you from time to time. The best thing that you can do to see actual improvements in your rank is to improve on what you can do to impact your games more, and completely ignore how your team is playing, as you are the one trying to climb the ladder and not your team. Our last point we wanted to make is that we all understand the frustrations you experience from your team underperforming or causing you to have loss streaks. However, you are in the same elo as them because you impact the game as much as they do. If you take the time to analyze and point out all the mistakes you make during every single game, you will realize that on average, you're making the same amount of mistakes every individual teammate is making. How can you complain about your teammates underperforming if you yourself are making as many mistakes as they are? We agree you will eventually get hard camped by the enemy jungler, and sometimes you can't do anything about it. Even if you can't play the game, we wanted to point out that getting camped is a good thing and is not something to be frustrated about. To begin, the enemy jungler may have formed a game plan to camp your lane just to set you behind. This may be frustrating because you can't do much in most cases. The most important thing to do in this scenario is to keep your head cool and not make plays out of frustration, and be smart about it. If their jungler set up a tent in your lane, that means that they are giving up a lot of pressure around the rest of the map and is most likely wasting a lot of their time. That time could have been spent on doing their own camps or ganking other lanes. Keeping their jungler in your lane also means that they are splitting experience. So eventually your team will have an overall experience lead, since they are not efficiently scaling from camps. The only way that camping is beneficial is from it being successful, whether that be forcing you out of lane from chunking you out or getting repeat kills. Understanding that the enemy jungler is setting your laner and themselves behind should make you happy, as you're helping the rest of the team and ruining their game plan of snowballing off your lane. Another reason why you may be getting camped is because you have poor wave management skills. If you allowed your opponent to freeze the wave on their side of the map, most likely it was your fault for letting them do that. If you properly manage your wave to slow push towards their side of the map, towards your side of the map, or frozen under your turret, then the jungle has much less windows to gank your lane. This is a situation where if you don't know any better, you'd probably complain because you think there is no counterplay other than to complain. However, in many situations like this one, there is always a way to prevent yourself from being camped. you may still get camped, but it either won't be as effective or you will be able to punish their camping harder. It is undeniable that some champions are stronger than others, and there are matchups that are painful to play, but that is not an excuse you can give yourself if you're trying to climb. You are going to get countered, and you're also going to have to play against weird picks. Complaining about how OP a champion isn't going to help you improve as a player, because you're more focused on complaining about their abilities being OP and not focused on how to play around it. For example, many people complain about how OP Kassadin is when he is 16 and has items. What most people tend to ignore is the fact that he is practically useless until he has a decent amount of items and only becomes extremely strong after level 16. This concept of understanding when champions are weak and strong is important when it comes to mastering the game, as you should be comfortable with pointing out every single pro and con for any champion in the game. If you think about Zoe and her annoying bubble, you can play around that by controlling vision to see the bubble coming. If you think Karthus, a light bulb should pop up telling you not to take bad trades, or you may just get ulted. There is always counterplay to every champion, even if you're in a matchup where you're countered. In every patch, there will always be champions that are better than the rest, but complaining will do nothing but hold back your improvement on the matchup and ultimately tilt you. Instead, you can see it as a challenge to beat your opponent even if you're countered and improve on how to play out lanes where the enemy has a considerable advantage. Everyone makes mistakes, including yourself. Flaming your teammates only makes winning the game a lot harder because it tilts your teammates, making each individual player not play with a calm and collected head. On top of that, the enemy team will also make a bunch of mistakes that you can capitalize on. With that said, who has a better chance of winning the whole game? The team that supports each other, or the team that flames every single mistake that is made? No matter how good you are or what rank you are currently, flaming will never be beneficial for you. Don't forget, your goal isn't just to win every game, it's ultimately to improve. Everybody will make mistakes, but the best thing to do is to minimize your own mistakes that you make during your games, because you're not trying to improve your teammates, you're trying to improve on yourself. The easiest way to avoid tilting and getting frustrated is to understand that there is a human being piloting each and every single champion in the game, and be empathetic towards your teammates. If one of your teammates is feeding, they may simply be having a bad game, or the enemy player may be experienced in that specific matchup. You should simply focus on how you can carry the game as hard as possible, knowing you have a disadvantage on that side of the map. No matter what rank you're playing in, you will have games where your team feeds. Understanding how to carry with a disadvantage is a skill in and of itself, and that is something you should be working on in these scenarios. Imagine a situation where you're split pushing, and you get collapsed on while your team isn't doing anything on the map. Sure, you can get frustrated at your team for not doing anything, but what does that do to help you? No matter what team you're matched with, you're going to have players that will not know what the right thing to do is. Instead, reflect on what you should have done. In this specific scenario, you could analyze that splitting in that exact moment was wrong, because you had no vision of the enemy mid and jungle who collapsed on you, and you're playing a champion with no abilities to help you escape. You can also analyze that your team doesn't have enough damage to burst Baron or take down turrets with the team composition that you've drafted. In either case, there is no one to blame but yourself, as you were the one getting caught. Even if your team is able to get Baron, staying alive is a whole lot better for the team than simply giving up your life for free. There are definitely cases where you just have to take one for the team, but the key point here is that you can always optimize your own play, whether that be to play safer when you should, or to adapt how you carry the game depending on how your team is playing. Repeat after me: lose is improve. It does not matter if you lose 10 games in a row if you are actively learning. If you're trying something new, you will certainly make mistakes and realize what you did wrong. If you do actually improve, then you will win all of your LP back and eventually climb higher than you were when you first started. It's your job to reflect and analyze the errors in your own play and hammer down in your head the right play the next time you jump into solo queue. We realize that this isn't as simple as we make it sound, but that is why we offer on-demand coaching so that you can get direct criticism from the top players to point out all the mistakes you're making in your games. League of Legends is definitely not a simple game that can be learned and mastered in a single night. It takes weeks, months, and even years to see substantial growth in your skill. But we don't say that to dissuade you from being the best version of yourself. We created this video, similar to our other content, just to help you in the right direction. We understand that we may have only covered a small number of reasons why you may get frustrated playing a game, but if your only purpose is to see an increase in your rank, adopting the right mindset of understanding how the game works and being empathetic towards your teammates is the best way to go. Your growth as a player will undoubtedly stagnate the second you think you're playing good enough. Always be hungry to learn how to get a more substantial lead in lane, and reflect on how you could have dominated the game harder, win or lose. Alright folks, that's all we've got for you. We believe that this is an incredibly overlooked value in League that is extremely important to improving. Not only will this boost the speed at which you improve, you'll enjoy the game a lot more, since you'll be untiltable. Also, similar to any class you took during school or any sport you played, a teacher or a coach is necessary to achieve your full potential faster. And that's why you should check out ProGuides.com, as we have players from the top of the ladder to pinpoint every single mistake you're making for the fastest growth. Over at ProGuides, there are supplementary courses that will go in depth on topics such as laning and matchups that are crucial for any player to smash your opponents. These courses are curated by your favorite pro players, such as Doublelift and Bunny Fufu, so you know you're getting your money's worth. What are you guys waiting for? Go check it out. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.